here's my favorite part of what we're going to talk about today. Here's where I'm going to address the American church. I'm going to talk to the people of God in the United States. If you consider yourself and identify yourself as a Christ follower, well, that means that to love God is to obey God, right? I'm speaking to you right now. And here's what I want to say to you. If you are a Christian and you're not pursuing justice, and you're pushing back on this movement, and you're pushing back in this moment of history, I'm not for the left or for the right. I'm not here with a political agenda, and I'm not here to put my trust in men at all. So therefore, this is not where I'm speaking from. This is not a political mandate issue. This is a kingdom issue. And so when you avoid this conversation and stay silent, when you push back and say things like all lives matter, and when right now more than 12 million people are being persecuted because of the color of their skin, dare I say, my friend, Christ follower, you have missed the point, my friend. And I have to be very serious with that, because we ought to approach this issue with fear and trembling, because God is watching us. God is watching us. This should have been done the other way around. So if you have rage about what's happening in the streets, well, I think that we ought to take a deep and close look within our hearts. But we don't want to do that, do we? We don't want to take a sobering, humble look within our hearts and acknowledge that, this is my favorite part, that which we have as the American church been complicit to. And I'm going to let that sit for a second, because that's the reality of where we find ourselves in. And so the question should be, why did it take so long for the church to lead this charge? Why didn't the church lead this charge? Why are we now catching up to the world leading this charge? That's where the anger should come from. And so I come to you from that place of the civil rights movement was birthed out of a church. This is something that was planted in a church, and this is something that I believe we should have gone with. And so, my friend, I tell you right now, until Black lives matter, all lives can't matter. They simply don't matter. And it's not a slogan. It's not a hashtag. It's not an organization. It's when Black people begin to matter. It's when we say all are equal, that we actually mean it. Then that's when there's a radical transformation. And so all lives don't matter until Black lives matter. And I want you guys to understand, my question to the Christians who are pushing back is, are you trying to prove a point? Or are you trying to solve a problem? Because when I look at Jesus, his humility says, I want what's right over being right. Humility says, show me where I'm wrong, lead me to the truth, because I want the truth. Humility says, I have needs, but right now, your need is my concern. Your need takes precedent, because that is the way of Jesus. And in this text that we're opening up right now, we're going to take a closer look, and Jesus is in the synagogue, and there's so many needs. People's needs need to be met. And Jesus does this thing. He is able to see a concern. I love Jesus because he's always seeing the concern, always seeing the pain in the middle of a chaos. When he's with his disciples in the storm, he is speaking right to their fear, to their innermost fear. When he's with Lazarus and Lazarus dies, he is weeping with those who are weeping. When Jesus is hanging on the cross, and the Roman soldiers have betrayed him, and his very own disciples, the guys who he's been walking with for 3.5 years side to side, they decide to reject him. What does Jesus do? He turns to the thief and says, today you have eternal life. He is more concerned with his neighbor than he is with himself. He looks to the well-being of his mother, and he's worried about her well-being more than he is about the chaos that is ensuing for him on the cross. That is the way of Jesus when we look at that, right? And I love this because in this scene, the Pharisees are sneering at him. They are waiting for him to react and say something wrong. Say something, Jesus. Do something wrong. And Jesus does not let the chaos crowd him away from the main concern. And here's what I want to tell you about this is that, listen, I don't like broken buildings. I pray that it stops. I don't like the rage that is happening in the streets. I pray that it stops. But to look at that and not acknowledge the root, not acknowledge the pain, not acknowledge where this is coming from is a disservice to what is happening. Let's not lose focus on the heart of the matter, guys. And that's what I want to talk about today when we realize that Black people today, Black lives are being in question in this day and age. That is a shame. That is a problem. That is a concern.
That's right.
And When we say that we are all equal and we don't actually mean it, that raises a concern. And as a Christ follower, I need to be concerned about those things. That breaks my heart. Because listen, I could rebuild a building, but I cannot rebuild the life that has been taken away. And we can learn a lot from Jesus, where he sees the concern in the middle of a chaos.